The boy stood barefoot on a cracked wooden porch, his hands shaking as he held a plate of warm food like it was something sacred, something that could vanish if he blinked. Hunger had carved his ribs sharp, shame had lowered his eyes, and the future felt like a locked door he had no key for. What nobody knew in that quiet moment was that a promise was being planted there. Small, fragile, almost invisible, that would take 20 long years to bloom and would change more than just one life forever. Before this story goes any further, take a second and ask yourself something simple but powerful. Do you believe kindness comes back around? Do you believe small moments can change a destiny? If you do, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because kindness exists, and so do you. The boy had grown up on the edge of farmland that never seemed to belong to him. Endless rows of crops stretched toward the horizon, green and promising, yet his stomach was always empty. His mother had died when he was still young, and his father had disappeared into the long shadow of debt and defeat soon after. From that point on, life became a quiet battle of survival, one day blurring into the next. He slept wherever he could, worked when someone allowed him, and learned early that pride was a luxury he could not afford. Most days, he wandered from farm to farm asking for work, not begging outright, but offering his hands, his back, his time. Sometimes he was ignored. Sometimes doors were closed before he finished speaking. Other times, someone would let him rake leaves, carry buckets, or pull weeds, paying him with a few coins or leftover food. Those small mercies were the only reason he survived. One late afternoon, hunger pressed harder than usual. The sky was heavy with gray clouds, and the wind carried the smell of soil and rain. He found himself standing outside a modest farmhouse, paint peeling, tools leaning against the wall like tired soldiers. He had been there before, though he had never dared to ask for anything. Something about the place felt gentle, like it remembered better days. A young woman lived there, someone who worked the land alone after inheriting it from her aging parents. She was not wealthy. In fact, she struggled every season, praying the crops would be enough to keep the farm alive. Yet despite her own worries, she carried herself with quiet strength and a heart that had not hardened. That day, she noticed the boy standing at the edge of the porch, trying to decide whether to leave. She saw the hunger in his eyes before he spoke. Without asking questions, without measuring what it might cost her, she brought out a plate of food. Simple food, corn, warm and golden, cooked with care. To her, it was just a meal. To him, it was survival. As he ate, slowly and carefully, something shifted inside him. This was not just kindness, it was dignity. She did not treat him like a burden or a charity case. She treated him like a human being who mattered. And in that quiet space between bites, a vow formed in his heart. He promised himself that one day, when life finally gave him a chance, he would return and repay this kindness. Not with words, but with action. Not with gratitude alone, but with sacrifice. The years that followed were not kind. Hunger returned many times. Cold nights stretched endlessly. He worked on construction sites, in kitchens, on fishing boats, anywhere someone would take him. Some jobs broke his body. Others nearly broke his spirit. But that promise stayed alive inside him, glowing faintly but steadily, reminding him why he could not give up. Education was a dream that felt unreachable, yet he taught himself whenever he could. He read discarded books, learned numbers, studied how businesses worked by listening quietly to conversations that were never meant for him. Failure followed him like a shadow, but so did resilience. Every time life knocked him down, he remembered that porch, that plate of food, that moment of being seen. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. One opportunity led to another. A small job turned into a better one. Someone noticed his work ethic. Someone trusted him. Years passed, and hardship shaped him into someone sharp, disciplined, and relentless. He saved money when he could. He invested when he dared. He failed again, but this time, he learned faster. By the time 2 decades had passed, the boy was no longer a boy. He had become a man who understood loss, hunger, patience, and hope in ways few ever do. He had built something real for himself, success that did not come from luck, but from endurance. Wealth followed, not suddenly, but undeniably. And with that wealth came a memory he could no longer ignore. The farm still existed, though barely. Time had not been gentle. The roof sagged, the fields struggled, and debt pressed heavily on the land. The woman who had once offered food without hesitation had grown older, her strength worn thin by years of labor and quiet sacrifice. She had lost more than she had gained, yet she never lost her integrity. One ordinary morning, a car rolled down the dirt road leading to the farmhouse. Expensive, polished, out of place. She watched it with suspicion, assuming it was another official notice, another reminder that the land might soon be taken from her. When the man stepped out, dressed simply but confidently, she did not recognize him at first. He looked at the house, the porch, the tools leaning against the wall. The memories came rushing back with such force that he had to steady himself. This was the place where his future had quietly begun. This was where someone had believed in him without knowing his name. He approached her with respect, not revealing who he was right away. He listened as she spoke about the farm, about how hard it had become to keep going. He heard the fatigue in her voice, the resignation she tried to hide. And when the moment was right, he told her the truth. The truth. He told her about a hungry boy, about a plate of food, about a promise made in silence. Recognition dawned slowly, then all at once. Tears filled her eyes as she realized who stood before her. The boy she had helped without thinking had returned as a man who never forgot. What he did next was not dramatic in the way movies often show. There was no grand speech, no public display. He paid off the farm's debts quietly. He restored the land, repaired the house, invested in the soil so it could thrive again. He ensured she would never have to struggle for survival again, not as repayment, but as fulfillment. He kept his promise completely, but the greatest gift was not the money or the land. It was the message. Kindness is never wasted. Compassion travels through time. A small act can echo across decades and return multiplied. As the sun set over the fields, the man stood on that same porch, no longer hungry, no longer lost. He had become living proof that promises made in desperation can still be honored in abundance. If this story has reached something deep inside you, if it reminded you of a moment when someone helped you or someone you helped, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and leave a comment. Your engagement keeps stories like this alive, and your support helps spread kindness further than you may ever know. Before the ending, we have one special request. Please comment below with a simple word, promise. Promise. Let it be a reminder to you and to others that even the smallest vow made in the darkest moment can one day change a life. The boy kept his promise not because he became rich, but because he never forgot what it meant to be poor. And in doing so, he proved that the truest wealth is a heart that remembers where it came from. The morning after he fulfilled the promise, the man did not leave. He stayed not as a visitor or benefactor, but as someone returning home to a truth he had carried quietly for 20 years. The farmhouse smelled the same earth, old wood, and something faintly hopeful. The woman moved more slowly now, her hands rougher, her back bent by seasons of labor that never quite loved her back. Yet there was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there the day before. Relief had softened her worry. For the first time in years, she slept without fear of losing everything. He walked the fields alone, boots sinking into soil that once fed his hunger only through sight. Each row reminded him of days he'd passed by with an empty stomach, pretending not to look too closely. Now he studied the land with care and respect, understanding how much of her life was written into every inch of it. This wasn't just a farm, it was a testament to endurance. As days turned into weeks, he quietly began restoring more than buildings. He hired local workers, paid fair wages, and brought life back to the land without spectacle. People noticed. Word spread slowly, not about his wealth, but about his humility. He never corrected anyone who assumed he was just a manager or distant relative. Titles meant nothing to him here. At night, he sat on the porch where everything had begun. The same wind brushed his face, the same sky stretched endlessly above him. But inside, he was no longer the boy begging for a chance. He was a man who had learned that success without memory is empty, and wealth without gratitude is hollow. The woman eventually asked him why he stayed. He told her not with speeches, but with honesty. He said some debts aren't financial. Some promises don't end when they're paid. And some places hold pieces of who we are, no matter how far we travel. What he didn't say, but lived every day, was that he was healing. All those years of survival had left scars he never acknowledged. Here, in the place where kindness first interrupted his suffering, he finally allowed himself to rest. Seasons changed. The farm flourished again. Crops grew fuller, soil richer, and the house stood strong, no longer tired or afraid. The woman regained something she had lost long ago: dignity without desperation. She no longer woke up calculating what she'd lose next. She woke up planning what she'd grow. One afternoon, a young boy appeared at the edge of the porch, thin, hesitant, hungry in ways that went deeper than food. The man noticed immediately. He saw himself in the boy's posture and the way hope flickered but never fully went out. Without ceremony, without discussion, he brought out a plate of warm food and placed it gently in the boy's hands. The boy ate carefully, as if afraid the moment might vanish. The man watched, heart heavy and full at the same time. This was the circle completing itself, not through money, but through mercy. Years later, when the man eventually left the farm for good, it wasn't abandonment. The land no longer needed saving. It had been given a future. The woman lived her remaining years without fear, respected by her community, remembered not for what she had owned, but for what she had given freely when it mattered most. The man went on to build more, help more, give more, but never forgot where his true wealth began. The not in boardrooms or contracts, but on a quiet porch with a simple plate of food and a moment of compassion. And long after both were gone, the story remained, told not as legend, but as truth, that a poor boy once made a promise, that kindness once crossed paths with hunger, and that 20 years later, a promise was kept, not because it had to be, but because love never forgets. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the smallest act of kindness can echo through a lifetime, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive. And before you leave, comment a promise kept below. Let the world know you still believe in second chances, in quiet goodness, and in the power of remembering where we come from. Because sometimes the greatest return on kindness is the person who comes back.